Hello everyone, and welcome to another round of Dark Souls 3 PvP Invasions. So, I'm sure you are all aware of the meme of caster builds are not viable in Dark Souls 3 PvP. And I'm well aware of it as well, and it was playing on my mind a lot over the last few weeks when I was back to Dark Souls 3. Whilst I've been playing around at soul level 90, trying to find a new build that works for me. My old soul level 90 build used an ultra great sword and a hand axe. So I knew that worked for me, but I wanted to try something different, something that I'd never tried before. And a caster build that isn't dog shy is kind of like so elusive. It's been so elusive to the community, and I think I've found a way to make a decent caster build at soul level 90 that isn't dog shit and doesn't rely on being a meme. So the whole thing about caster builds not being viable is kind of a no true Scotsman argument. So the no true Scotsman, not an argument, it's a fallacy. The anecdote goes like this: two Scotsmen are eating porridge together. One turns to the other and says, "No Scotsman would have sugar on his porridge." The other one turns to him and says, "Well, I'm Scottish and I have sugar on my porridge." And then the other one goes, well, no true Scotsman will have sugar on his porridge. So it's essentially moving the goalposts in order to suit your argument. So when it comes to caster builds, they'll say caster builds aren't viable. Someone will make a caster build and they'll go, well, it's not a true caster build because you're, using melee weapons, or your damage is too low. So they'll be moving the goalposts and say, well, although you might have won with this build, it's not a true caster build, which is just completely self-defeating. Because if you're using spells and it's sort of like a key element to your build, then you're a caster build, no matter how big a percentage of you're using those spells to do your damage and stuff. So we could argue back and forth about whether these builds that I've made are true caster builds. I would say that they are, because an integral part of using them is using the spells. So I've done two new builds, both at soul level 90, and they are so much fun. I think this is the most fun I've had playing a build recently in the last year or so. This has been so much fun. It's so cathartic. It's powerful. It's flexible. They can do a lot of. It's amazing. So the big trade-off when you're making a caster build, especially as an invader, is you have to allot a certain amount of your stats into FP, and FP gives you your attunement slots, and it gives you more FP, more focus points in order to spend on casting your spells. And that's kind of a pain in the arse, because that is you have to draw stats away from other areas, and a lot of people will bulk at that, because that means you'll have to either sacrifice health, vitality, endurance, damage, and all of these elements of your build. So the way I looked at it when I was trying to come up with a way to make the stats work and get on my spells that I wanted is, what can I do without? You can't do without health as an invader. I mean, you see so many meme spellcaster builds where they'll have like base figure meta, but they've pumped everything into int, and they've got the cleric's counselling in the left hand, the core social stuff in the right, but they die in 2 hits. That's not viable for an invasion. To meme on people, yes, you can do that, but to be an invader and actually get victories, you can't sacrifice that. So damage, you can't sacrifice your damage there, because otherwise what's the fucking point? If you're going to be chucking spells at people, you want them to be doing good damage. Can't sacrifice on that. Endurance and vitality. Okay, now we're starting to get somewhere. Your endurance, which dictates your stamina. I've come to the conclusion now you don't need nearly as much of it as you think you do. 40 endurance is you don't need that. No one needs that fucking much endurance unless you're playing at high soul levels, where it's a case of why not. You can get away. I think for these builds I have about between 21 to 24 endurance, which is perfectly fine. I'm using fairly small weapons. The biggest weapon I'm using is a great sword, as you can see, the bastard sword. So they're not really stamina intensive. It's good actually, because I've done a lot of low soul levels at soul level 30-ish in the forest. I've been using ultra great swords. That kind of trains you to deal with using bigger weapons with a low stamina pool and how to conserve your stamina more effectively. So that's kind of helped me a lot in coming and doing these builds. And vitality, which dictates your equip load and your defense stats. So FP gives you a small bump in your defense when you level up as well, so you're not completely losing out on, you know, your vitality by leveling up FP, your attunement, sorry. You can do without fucking massive equip burden, because you've got Ring of Favour +3 and Prison's Chain, which is good, and we're using small weapons, and this leads on to another next point, weapon variety. So obviously I'm using elemental builds. I'm doing a chaos build, chaos/dark build for my pyro, and crystal build for the mage. So I don't need to invest a lot in strength and dex. I could have a large variety of weapons. What I've done previously is I've invested a little bit into strength and dex, so I can have a wide variety of weapons like curved swords and ultra great swords, and then infuse them all to crystal and stuff. So this was the major sacrifice I made, was I gave myself a very limited amount of points to allocate into strength or dex. So I'll show you the stats at the end of the video if you like. For the pyro, I have 16 strength and 10 dexterity, so I can just use the bastard sword. I love this weapon. It's so fucking cheap, like cheap in a stat investment kind of way. Like, it requires almost nothing. And for the mage, I think I've got 14 and 12, which is the knight starting class. And I tell you what, when I show you the stats for the mage, he isn't even that efficient, because I started as the wrong class. Because I didn't intend for him to be a mage, he just sort of turned out that way. So I can only use a small handful of weapons, but it's quite fortunate that some of the best weapons in the game, longsword for example, requires no investment. So that's kind of what I stuck with. So the pyro has longsword, the mace, the bastard sword, and the vanilla spear as his weapons. Oh, and the hand axe, of course, and that's another great thing, one of the best weapons in the game. See, just that's a mean mage, don't be that guy. Yeah, so the hand axe requires no investment, and that's like one of the best offhand weapons in the game, so that's very fortunate. And the mage, because he had quite slightly higher base stats, I didn't give him a great sword, but he's got the long sword, the 4-pronged plough, and a couple of other bits and pieces I can't remember. Probably got a mace as well on there. So I've got quite a small pool of weapons to play with, but they're good weapons, and they pretty much cover all the bases you need. Now, when it comes to the spell selection that we've got, I pretty much tried the most of the spells that are available for the two schools of magic. For the pyro, my original intention for the build, I wanted to try something with Chaos Firestorm, because I was so desperate to want that to be good. And my initial idea was to use the white hair talisman, which allows you to cast miracles and pyros. So I would then equip force to force people on the ground, and then get them to wake up with Chaos Firestorm. But it's dog shit. Like, the spell is crap. It doesn't do nearly as much damage as you think it should, because you're using a crap pyro glove, talisman, whatever. It's got a shit spell buff on it. And it's just too fucking slow. Even with the Sage's Ring, it's just too fucking slow, and people can so easily roll out of it. So that was right out. The other fireballs I sort of dicked around with. I landed on Vestiges because it is just the best pyro spell. It does a fuck ton load of damage, and it's got this gigantic broken hitbox, which is I just love. I understand now what everyone wants to just chuck vestiges at people. it's just OP as fuck, and I love it. So for the pyro, the spells I landed on were the 4 key PvP spells, which is Vestiges, Fire Surge, Black Flame, Black Serpent, and they all serve a different utility, and they're all 4 of them are incredibly useful. So Vestiges is your main damage dealer for just chucking it at people who aren't paying attention, Fire Surge for doing chip and for chasing people down, Black Flame for de-shielding people, people who get too close, and Black Serpent for forcing people to roll. All individually very useful spells and a key element to making the build work, and I love that. So for the mage, their spells, the function of the spells on a mage are all kind of similar. I found that they're not as flexible as a pyro. If you're wanting to do a spellcaster, a pyro build is the best one to do for PvP, purely because the spells actually have different utility. So for the mage, I've got Soul Spear, Great Soul Arrow, Great Farron Dart, and Soul Greatsword. So again, I dicked around with some of the other spells and all that stuff. I tried to do the Crystal Soul Spear meme, and although the damage is fairly good, it costs far too much FP. For the mage, I've got about 25 attunement, and although that's good, it's not enough for me to get a few good casts out of Crystal Soul Spear. So I stuck with just the regular vanilla Soul Spear, which strikes a nice balance between FP efficiency and damage. So with the Crystal Soul Spear, you'll get about 500 to 550, maybe 600 damage on a good day against someone, whereas Soul Spear you'll do about 450, maybe 500. So you're sacrificing maybe 100 points of damage, but I think it costs like 12 points less in FP, which is a lot more stat efficient in my mind. So I stuck with that. Great Soul Arrow because it's fast. I can do about 250 to 300 damage with it, and it's great for just harassment and catching people by surprise. Great Farron Dart, it's alright. It's okay. It does a little bit of damage. It kind of fills the niche that Fire Surge has for the Pyro build, where you're trying to just do that last little bit of damage, but I haven't found a great deal of utility for it. And Soul Greatsword, which is my melee spell, and I really like this spell. I really do. Farron Flash Sword is dog shit. Don't use it. It doesn't do nearly as much damage, nearly enough damage, sorry, and it's still far too slow. Don't use Farron Flash Sword. Soul Greatsword is good though. You'll get about 350 for a swing of Soul Greatsword, which is about what you'd expect for a Greatsword swing. In all honesty, with a plus 10 at soul level 90, which is quite nice. So whenever I'll engage it afar with the long range spells, Soul Arrow and Soul Spear and stuff, and then when it comes to actual melee combat, I'll equip Soul Greatsword, and I'll just incorporate that in, pepper that in with the regular melee weapons, and it's fantastic. It catches people off guard a surprisingly amount. Yeah, really fun. So another issue, going back to it, another issue that people face when it comes to doing caster builds is that you have to allot your Estus, and you lose out on orange, HP Estus flasks in order to regain your FP. Now, I don't mind this so much because I understand the developer's intention behind it, at least I think I do. So the intention behind it is because you're a spellcaster, you can attack your enemies, whether it's PvE or PvP, from afar with these really high damaging spells. You're not in any immediate danger because you can stay out of melee range. So that's the sacrifice you make for having a long range attack, is that you'll have to lose out on something. So you have to lose out on one of your Estus flasks. So I think that strikes a nice balance between the power of spellcasting against the sacrifice you have to make in a way. So yes, this like I said, it's been fucking fun as hell. I haven't had this much fun in a bloody long time. Even when I've been losing with these builds, it's still been a hell of a lot more fun than getting trounced using sort of either a silly lore meme build or super try-hard stuff. It's been fucking amazing. I really advise you all give this a go because it is fun as fuck. I mean, I would say that you probably don't want to try these kinds of builds at a lower level, which is another reason why mages and spellcasters have been shat on in the past. It's because they require a fair amount of investment in order to get the stats out, in order to get, both have survivability and damage, and decent damage on your spells and stuff. You could probably get away with these kinds of builds at maybe 70 or 80 but anything below that, it starts to get a bit tricky. I did a 60 spellcaster build. There's a video on my channel where I've done that, and he's okay. The spells are just there for harassment and utility. They don't do the main bulk of the damage, unfortunately. So I think the next thing I want to try, I mean, I've done the 2 main casting schools of Sorcery and Pyro. I want to make a faith build, dedicated faith build, because I've never done that before. Not even, you know, using the good the good spells like Lightning Arrow or Lightning Stave, whatever. I want to give that a go, because I think I can, now that I've got the experience under my belt for Pyro and Sorcery, I reckon I can make a fairly decent faith build. And the thing with, because that is the biggest meme of all, like faith builds get continuously shat on by the community in this game, and it's kind of unfair, because faith builds are more of a supplementary class, and it's more aimed at people doing co-op, because you get all these passive buffs and heals and all this stuff. That's kind of what the faith build was intended to be. It's to supplement the party, like a co-op party, fighting a boss or going through a level, whatever, because you got all these buffs and regen and heal spells and shit. So I think you might be able to make this work as an invader. So if you put on fast casting, low investment heals, just like regular heal or medium heal, if you can get the space between you and the party, if they're playing passive enough, you can use those heal spells instead of your Estus. And my guess is that if you allot your stats correctly, you'll be able to out-heal the Estus that you've lost from allotting it to Ashen Estus. That's my idea anyway. So I'd probably put Lightning Arrow on there because it's the best one. Maybe Lightning Stake or Sunlight Spear so I can poise cast in people's faces, and then just some like supplementary heals and buffs. I think that would make a fairly decent faith build, in all honesty. But again, it would come down to, oh, this is not a true faith build because you're not killing people using exclusively miracles. It's like, well, it is what it is, mate. Faith builds, they are what they are. I think that would be fairly interesting to see. And again, it would come down to the same kind of stat alignment, and it would be fairly similar to the mage, in all honesty, where I'd not invest in strength or dex, just to have the small pool of weapons, and then just pump the rest into vigor and faith in order to get the good damage. And this works. It really works. If you're happy not to use like Lothric Knight Straight Sword or the Claymore or the Zweihander or whatever other one of your favourite weapons is, then go for it, mate. It's really not hard to play. I mean, it's a fucking straight sword. You're using a long sword. It's fine. It's like the best weapon. So, I was worried when I was doing these, especially the mage, the sorcerer. But I was worried that I wasn't going to be able to hit anyone with Soul Spear. But my great pleasure when playing this build is getting people who are running away with Soul Spear and just go, from way downtown, the Soul Spear comes streaming down. It's fucking excellent. You will hit a surprising amount of people. And people will make the argument and say, oh, well, again, to the no true spellcaster sort of thing. Oh, well, the people you're fighting against aren't very good, so, you know, of course it's going to work. It's like, these work in random invasion. If you were going to go to Pontiff with this setup, you'd probably have a harder time, because those people are sort of hardened, like no-lifers who've been in this game for the last 3 years and have been honing their ganking expertise for the last 3 years. It probably isn't gonna work in random invasions against regular players, even fairly decent players. You will see a great deal of success with these setups. I mean, a great deal. Yeah, dueling, probably not. Again, because there's no distractions. There's literally just you and the other player. So it's not. But fuck what duelists think. In all honesty, this is a good invasion setup. Period. I will fucking defend that to the hilt.
Oh god.
So coming back to that last point, I kind of want to redact that now. Like, against people who are good at this game and tryhards, you can just fall back on your melee weapons because you've got a straight sword. You can put like a parry shield on here. I've got the four-prong plow and the hand axe. The left hand, that's a great meta dueling setup. You can just, you know, if you really wanted to, you could just abandon the spell casting, swap your rings out, and just go full try hard on motherfuckers. And you got the damage and the health in order to deal with it. So I redact my previous statement. This build does perfectly fine against tryhards. There's some wasted stats, yes, because you've got shitloads in attunement that you're not using, but damage dealing and health is all you're really interested in. Those are your main things that you need in dueling, or 1v1ing, should I say. There we go. So the rings that I'm using, we haven't talked about the rings. They're between the two builds, they've kind of got the same setup. So we've got Prisoner's Chain and Ring of Favour +3. You kind of need those on every build, at least, you know, any build below 140, you need Prisoner's Chain and Ring of Favour +3. And I've got Sage's Ring +3 on both the builds. Well, the mage only has Sage's Ring basic at the moment because I haven't got enough miles to get Sage's Ring +2 yet. I said Sage's Ring +3, didn't I? I meant +2. That's the best one you can get. And I've got one of the damage dealing rings. For the Pyro, I've got a Witch's Ring, and for this guy, I've got Bellowing Dragon Crest Ring, which are the stronger of the two damage dealing rings. What you could do is you could get rid of Ring of Favour +3 to have the other spellcasting damage ring, just to get that extra maybe 50 points of damage on your spells, but I didn't really think it's necessary. Ring of Favour +3 is far more useful, remains useful even when you're not casting spells. That extra bit of stamina, health, and the equip load in order to have good armour is far more useful than fucking 50 points of damage on your spells, in my mind. But you could do it if you wanted to. If you wanted to go full meme, you absolutely go for it. Oh, get fucking straight sword, fucking Shrek, son. Naughty. So, I think the main disadvantage of being sorcerer is that you kind of have to wear those stupid anime ears, the dust crown, in order to get fairly decent damage. You can get away with not using it. Maybe if you're running something like a 60 int with close candlestick build, you can probably get away with not having the stupid meme ears. But for what I wanted to achieve, I think I felt I kind of needed to put it on. It's not so bad. I mean, it's an atrocity against faction, yes, I agree. But when you're coming up against another mage, you can just swap it out to like something else with equal weight. So I've been using like the Sage's Blindfold. As soon as I see Crystal Soul Spear being flung around, I'm like, yeah, I'm not having any of that shit, and just swap it out to the old Sage's Blindfold, and that's fine. I'm quite happy to sacrifice the damage if it means I don't get one shot by that fucking spell. A lot of duels by the bonfire recently, and this guy was an absolute fuck. Like, I understand why Sticky does it now. He doesn't bow to people even when they bow at him. He just gives them a wave or something, because invariably they're just gonna fuck you over and gank you. They don't buy into Honor Bro. Because look at that, he gave me a bow and he just summoned the blues on me, so fuck your bow. Like, that meant absolutely nothing. I mean, I wasn't expecting him to duel me in some sort of honor system. That's fine, it's an invasion, you can do what you want. But don't make it out that you're going to be honourable by bowing at me. Like, no. All solo hosts are just gankers who haven't summoned yet, and this guy is a prime example of that. See, this is a guy playing a pyro build wrong. You can't just throw your fucking fireballs and expect to kill people. Especially if they have your full undivided attention, they're just going to reaction roll you. You gotta wait until they do something stupid like try to swap weapon, or they're running, or they're trying to run away. That's when it works. The pyro build especially is put you in some real bad habits, and I lost quite a few invasions because I just got so bloodthirsty with throwing fireballs at people that I kind of just forgot to do anything else. I was like, oh, I can just chuck vestiges at it, and you know, everything else, all the pieces would just fall into place. And sometimes that works. Sometimes brute force with vestiges can work, but oftentimes, for people who have half a brain cell, they know how to deal with it, especially if there's more than one of them. So yeah, be careful about how gung-ho you get about chucking fireballs around, because you will get punished for it. You have to use it sparingly. Use it as a punish. So you can do this with both the mage, the sorcerer, and the pyro. Is you smack them with the sword a couple of times, get your 2-hit combo. As they roll out, because most people will roll out of that, then you chuck either the vestiges or the soul spear or the great soul arrow at them, and that usually catches them, especially if they're not panic rolling. Even if they are panic rolling, honestly, it catches them. It's a nice little pseudo combo actually. It's quite good. Yeah, read that parry on my heart, mate. You have to be more creative than that. Keep trading, keep trading. Oh dear. Yeah, I got the spit. I mean, I could. It only costs 1 extra point in dexterity for this build in order for me to have the 4-prong plough, and I think I might do that. I've got 30 attunement on this, and I think at this point, I think 30 is probably too much. I can probably sacrifice a couple of points to put into dex so I can use the plough. I mean, the vanilla spear is fine, but it's pretty short as spears go, and the plough is just fucking meta as fuck. These guys were fairly cool. They were a bit of a pain in the ass because these guys. One of them would like to stay in the back chucking bombs while the other comes and engages you with the great sword. That's a pain in the ass to deal with. But I mean, props to them. They're all the phantoms are wearing the untrue dark ring. So they got fashion points for that. You don't see that nearly as much anymore. I think the try-hard in all of us says we can't spare a ring slot on fashion. We must wear our colours with pride. Be they white, gold or red. Yes, he's chucking bombs at me. I hate it when people do this, it's such a pain in the arse. It's an effective tactic. It's a good ganker tactic, in all honesty. It's weird to see the ganking meta evolve over the last sort of 3 years or so, because you look back at some old videos, especially old Saint Riot videos, and the gankers in there were just fucking moronic. Like, they're just dog shit, and any one of us with the skills we've had, the skills we've gained over these past years, we'll be able to wipe gankers from 2016, 2017 off the face of the earth. But the gankers now in 2019, although they're still not good, they're good enough. They've got some tactics under their belt, like the shitty passive meta where they won't attack, they won't engage or attack, and they'll just sit there, staying just far enough apart that you can't get both of them in your swings, and then they'll just blindside you when you try and attack one of them. That's a good ganking tactic. Throwing projectiles whilst the invader's trying to attack your teammate, that's a good ganking tactic because of the hit stun. You got 20 fire bombs, 10 black fire bombs, 20 lightning urns, and like throwing knives and cookery and stuff. You just chuck projectiles at them until they can't do anything. It's not so much the damage that they're doing, it's the hit stun that's the pain in the arse. But yeah, the ganking has evolved in a weird way, and it's weird to see it evolve. It means you have to be a little more creative in order to deal with it. That's why I kind of like having the crossbow on some of my builds. The pyro's got a light crossbow now. I was getting fed up with dealing with passive assholes, and although I've got the spells to deal with it to a degree, once my FP is gone, it's gone. I mean, even with a simple Estus or simple shield and stuff, it doesn't regen nearly fast enough in order to be useful to me. So putting the crossbow on there with lightning bolts and exploding bolts means I've got just an extra tool for harassment and to just punish people who just want to fucking sit there and stroke their dicks and stick their fingers up their arse because they're too much of a pussy to come and fight the level and fight the invader. This guy was cool. Sorry, I'm back to the fights at hand. I ran into this guy a couple of times in the archives. He was a nice guy. He was kind of memeing around on the bookshelf with the torches and stuff. Yeah, he was a cool guy. I invaded him afterwards and I dropped him some members and stuff and Black Crystal'd out. And this was a really good fight. This was a really fun fight. Didn't heal, but it wasn't, you know, one of those really annoying ones where I felt like obligated not to heal. It was sort of out of a general sense of this guy seemed cool and I wanted to give him a fair fight. Because bear in mind, for most of these people their build isn't finished yet, if they're making a build at all. So, because most to be honest, I don't know how many people still go to 125 these days, or 140. So, their build isn't finished until that level. So, at Soul Level 90, I have a finished build, although they might still have the same kind of Estus and most of the rings they need. It's still, I have a complete build I mean, normally that doesn't stop me. Again, even against solo hosts, I would quite happy go full on and use all my heals if I want to. But that guy seemed cool, so I wanted to give him a chance. Oh, I love punishing free scythe with just a soul spear in the face. So good. It's just so good. To be honest, I haven't felt at a I mean, I've got the great sword on the pyro guy, but for this mage guy, I really haven't felt at a disadvantage from not having Poise weapon on here. I like great swords, yes, but I think they're not as useful as the weapon combination, or not as flexible as the weapon combination I have already. Because the plough can punish other hyper armor weapons at a distance. I'm really bad against fighting hyper armor weapons, especially the up and down great swords, ultra great swords. Sorry, I'm really bad at fighting those from downtown. So, you know, the plough is kind of the hard counter to that kind of stuff. So I don't really want to sound, I hope this doesn't sound arrogant of me to say, but I really feel that this was the developer's intention of how spellcasting was meant to be played in Dark Souls 3. Using it as more of utility in order to supplement your melee weapons, as opposed to it being the core way in which you're doing damage and winning your fights. In Dark Souls 2, I feel that they moved it in the other direction, where they, because of the larger variety of spells that you could cast, and the way that the PvP system worked, and it was more focused around 1v1 dueling. Pure spellcaster builds were more viable, and I think a lot of people missed that about Dark Souls 2, and that's what sort of put them off of spellcasting in Dark Souls 3, because it was more meant to be used as supplementary. I mean, it's hard to discern developer intention when we don't have a direct link to Miyazaki, but we can make assumptions based on how the game turned out and what works within the context of PvP. And pure spellcaster builds in Dark Souls 3 don't work, however using them as supplements to your melee weapons really, really does work. So that is my interpretation of their intention of the game. Pew! Pew! Yeah, like I said, it's surprising how many people you'll catch with these spells. Oh, that's so satisfying. It's so, when you get people with the spells and you kill them off, so yeah, it's so worth the one Estus sacrifice. Really is worth it. Naughty, naughty. It's nice, the pyro guy has the hyper armor option there, and I've used the bastard swords so much. My old Soul Level 30 guy, who was a poise beast, he had like 50 poise, and used the bastard sword. And Stomp is still Stomp is still the best fucking weapon art. So I really hate fighting. Everyone fucking hates fighting the meme swords of the gankers in that situation. But there was such an easy way to balance it, because the reason that those swords are so good is that if they get in close and they hit L1, they have one, they've got hyper armor, and two, they got that bullshit hit stun, which makes sure that you'll stand there and tank the other two fucking parts of the combo. And so you could either A, get rid of the hyper armor, or B, get rid of the hit stun. In order to balance those, if they just got rid of the fucking hit stun, then that would just be so much in a way more balanced. Because you'd still have a fuck ton load of damage and the hyper armor of the L1, but you won't. There'll be no guessing as to when you should or should not be rolling, because with latency involved, who the fuck knows when you should be rolling, especially if that guy is right in your face smashing L1. It's the same with the Farron meme sword, the breakdown sword. That bullshit dagger hit at the start that stuns you is just crap. It so doesn't need to be there, because the L1s on their own, the 2-hit combo of the L1 does fucking loads of damage, and having an automatic get with that dagger hit is just bullshit. I hate it. So these are the last couple of invasions, and it's such the beautiful karmic justice that Dark Souls sometimes throws out to us. So I didn't really pay attention to who the host was at this point. I didn't see his name when I spawned in, so I assumed this guy was the host because he was wearing the dark ring. And yeah, he probably gets fucking immolated. So I walk off thinking, being all smug, like, oh, I won, yes, very easy. Host of Embers destroyed? No? Shit. And holy shit, these guys were a pain in the ass. 2 guys using spears, and if you've been chased down with one guy using a spear, that's difficult enough, but being chased down by 2 people who have spears, that is a fucking nightmare. And if I'd gotten that fucking guard breaker post, I would have been laughing. I make the mistake here, I don't two-hand the bastard sword, instead I opt to chuck a few fireballs at them. If I'd stayed two-handed and just poised through all their bullshit, this probably would have ended differently. So pokey, pokey, pokey. I'm too late to get on the heels. They just fucking put me out. However, they got dried fingers running, so right back at it again. So I understand what they're trying to do now. So I'm already trying to think up ways in order to deal with it. So 1, poise, 2, lead them down here and use Black Serpent to force them to roll, because those narrow walkways are where Black Serpent shines, because they can either roll forwards and backwards and get hit by the Black Flame, or they can roll to the left and fucking roll off and die instantly. So either way they're gonna get fucked. And it seems that these guys are fairly bloodthirsty enough that they're going to follow me anywhere, so... And he's being a cocky little shit because he already won. Now in these instances, just a little tip, always break the bridge. If you're sure they're on this side of the bridge, always break the bridge, because I've had so many people and so many invasions end where they've just literally run over the bridge and cut it down so I can't chase them. And that's the end of the invasion, because you can't physically get there. Because you can't run all the way through the DLC in order to open up the shortcut. You can't open that door, so you're fucked essentially. So that's a Black Crystal situation. So always break that bridge. Always. Yeah, there you go. Black Serpent. They can do fuck all about that. And Schwa pointed this out to me in my last stream, that the hits on a Black Serpent lasts a suspiciously long time. And the up and down swing of the greatsword with the hyper armor demolishes him, and oh fucking fuck, you're on your own now, mate. Power of Vestiges. 1, 2, dead. Fucking get good, scrub. Right, so as promised, here is the build. Let me quickly run you through stats, weapons, rings, etc. I mean, I know I've already touched on that earlier in the video, but we are Soul of 90, 35 Vigor, bumped up by the Prisoner's Chain, 30 Attunement, which I mentioned before is probably a little bit too much in all honesty. You could probably reallocate that somewhere else, at least a couple of points of it at least. I don't think you want to be running any less than 25, but 25 to 30 is a good number to be at. 21 Endurance, 15 Vit. This is again bumped up by the Prisoner's Chain. Oh, I started as the Pyromancer starting class to give me the bump in and faith that I needed. 16 Strength and 10 Dexterity, 30 Int and 30 Faith. Good stats. Obviously we've hit the soft cap for damage on Dark and Chaos builds, so that's fucking brilliant. 35 Vigor with Ring of Favour +3 gives us a decent health pool of about 1500 HP, which is good. So because of the strength and dex that I've got, 16 and 10, I'm limited with the number of weapons I can use, which was the sacrifice I made when doing these builds. So I've got the Chaos Bastard Sword, Chaos Longsword, Dark Hand Axe, and I've got some other bits and pieces on here as well. I've got a Poison Heart, which I haven't really used, Chaos Millwood Battle Axe, Chaos Mace, Dark Spear. I've got a light crossbow, chime, and a few shields and things that I could use. I haven't really found a need to swap yet to any of these weapons. Like I've only got the Millwood Battle Axe on there purely because it's one of the few weapons I can actually wield. So I was like, well, why not? Why the fuck not put it on there, right? Armor, I've got Helm of Thorns, Fallen Knight Armor, Gauntlet of Thorns, and Forearm Boots. This gives us a respectable absorption of about 20% across the board, and a poise of 19.5, which is perfect for the Bastard Sword, which means I can swing through, you know, all the small weapons, things like that. That's all you're really looking for with hyper armor with this weapon. And I've got Prisoner's Chain, Ring of Favour +3, Sage's Ring +2, and the Witch Ring, which you can swap out for. Night Ring will give you a little extra AR, maybe, yeah, about 10 points. So if you're not using your Pyros, you can swap up to Knight's Ring and swap the Sages with Chloranthy or something. That's perfectly reasonable, and then you've got a perfectly viable build that doesn't involve spellcasting. It's fantastic. So like I said, Vestiges, Fire Surge, Black Flame, Black Serpent. Those are the best PvP spells. Honestly, you shouldn't really need any of the other ones. They're either all terrible or only situational. So let's swap over to Mr. Sorcerer. Alright, and so here is Mr. Sorcerer. Let me quickly run you through everything he's got. Pretty much an identical build, in all honesty. 35 Vigor, I've got 24 Attunement this time. I think this can be attributed to the fact that I was a Knight starting class as opposed to a Sorcerer starting class. If I'd started as a Sorcerer, I'd probably have a little more stat efficiency and a few stats left to dump into other areas like Attunement. But it is what it is. I wasn't going to run through the whole game again just to start with a different class. And 24 Attunement is just good enough for the spells that I'm using. 21 Endurance, 20 Vitality, again bumped up by the Prisoner's Chain. 16 Strength, 12 Dexterity, and 50 Intelligence. So that gives us some real respectable damage. I haven't hit the hard cap of 60 because I think it caps pretty hard at 60, but 40 is the soft, so I'm meeting it kind of in between. So that's a fairly good amount. I mean, you could go down to 40, but I feel your damage would suffer for both your spells and your weapons. So we've got Crystal Longsword +10, Crystal 4-pronged plough, got the Hand Axe, Quartz Sorcerer's Staff. I've run out of slabs, so I can't upgrade this to +10, but I only get 1 extra point to spell buff, so it's probably not that big a deal. I think Quartz Sorcerer's Staff is the best one at 50 Intelligence. I might be wrong. I think the Heretic Staff might be marginally better. This was just the first one I picked out of my storage box, so, and it's usually the best one, so we'll stick with that. And we got a simple Llewellyn for, you know, regen FP and for parries and shit. Crown of Dusk, which you can swap out to Old Sages because it's got the same weight if you're up against another spellcaster, which is nice because obviously your absorption does suffer. See, I've got 17.4% at the moment, and then with Dusk Crown it goes to -11, so that does make a difference. Then we've got Forearm, Gauntlet of Thorns, and Forearm Boots as well, so that's fairly decent fashion. I do like the Forearm armour. And the rings, again, almost identical. Prisoners, FAP, Sage's Ring, because I haven't got off my arse to get Sage's Ring +2 yet, and Bellowing. And again, if you wanted, you can just swap that out for Chloranthy and Knight's Ring, which will give you a little bump in your damage. So, yeah, Soul Spear, Soul Arrow, Farron Dart, and Soul Greatsword. Fucking, there you go, boys. A viable Sorcerer and Pyro build. So I hope you enjoy, and I will see you again.